right. Good evening, all. Hope you are doing great. Welcome to Friday Night Axanar Confidential. I'm Alec Peters. I'm your host. So we've got great guests tonight. One of my favorite people in the world, and our new director. And I'm going to introduce him in a minute here. I first wanted, because people have been asking me, what have you been so secretive about this auction this past week, Alec? What were you going after? And so it was crazy. Yesterday was crazy because the auction, I had 10 lots in the auction over the past 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday. And I can show you some of my items, but they were Star Trek items mostly, although I had a Captain America costume in it. And anyway, the idea was to sell a bunch of stuff. So I had the cash to buy my Holy Grail. And as many of you know, my favorite movie is a little movie called Silent Running. And I've told you that I have the original poster art to this. And let's get this. Let me get this image up. So here you go. So this is the movie poster, which is it's very well known. It's probably one of the more famous science fiction movie posters. Silent Running. It was a 1972 movie. It was the first movie from Douglas Trumbull that Douglas Trumbull was director of, and there you go. And probably most of you have seen it already. If you haven't, I want to know why you haven't seen it. It's just a great little movie. It was a movie made by Universal. They basically came out with, they were going to make 10 movies for $1 million a piece, and each one was going to be given to a brand new director. And Douglas Trumbull had just been very successful with his with working with Stanley Kubrick on 2001: A Space Odyssey and Faking the Moon Landing. And just joking. And but he just rolled off in 2001, and so they gave him the helm of Silent Running, and it was Bruce Dern's premiere role as the lead, as a leading man. And so anyway, I love this movie, and hopefully you do too. And if you haven't, go watch it, because it's a great little movie, and it's environmental, so it's got the whole 60s environmental vibe, which is very appropriate right now. Jesus. I'm like this. The scary thing is this movie is coming to pass with global warming and all, and climate change. But anyway, so I have that original poster art. I actually own the original poster art to that poster, which was like one of my holy grails. I mean, I just couldn't believe that I actually found it. It's crazy, the stuff that happens. I think I'm gonna, and so. In auction, and so the one thing we've always been waiting for is where is Bruce Dern's suit from this movie? Where is it? It has not popped up. Well, it turns out it was in Douglas Trumbull's collection. So, like Douglas Trumbull himself, the director himself owned it, and it went up for auction. There you go. It went up for auction yesterday. What is going on? And here it is, right? And it was just a beautiful, beautiful piece. I'll show you all the photos. The color is striking after 50 years. I mean, this is almost 50 years old, and the color is still vibrant as ever. It's totally recognizable. This is a piece that was cut off in the surgery scene. And here is pictures of Bruce Dern wearing this costume, right? He wears it throughout the movie. So anyway, it was totally, for me, for a proper collector, many of you know that I have a big Star Trek collection, somewhat big. It's gotten smaller over the years as Axanar has whittled away my collection. But anywho, the good news is I won the auction, and I had to sell a ton of stuff, including my Bob Peak paint, Star Trek 3 prelim painting, which did ridiculous well. But anyway, it all came out in the wash. I sold a ton of stuff. I bought the suit, some other stuff, and basically didn't have to lay out any money. So, and as you see, yes, that suit sold for $32,500, which with buyer's premium, which is what they charge you 25%, is like $42,000. And you're like, Alec, you're an idiot. And I know. And I'm like, yeah, but I sold stuff that I had. So it was, the sad news is I had to sell the General Chang costume, which is what Richard wore in Prelude to Axanar. But this was just it. This was the Holy Grail. For me, this was it. If I never buy another costume in my life, I'll be happy. And I know many of you were asking about it. Many of you were sending me messages. Are you going after that? And I was being very circumspect because I didn't want people to know what I was going after. So, okay. So that's it. That's the Alec absurdity for the day. Now I'm going to welcome in my good friend and our new director, Ted Brunetti. Ted, how are you? Who quarantined in New York? He is in in a 800 square foot apartment. Is it that big?
Well, no, I wish.
Yeah,
it's small.
It's New York. It's New York, and so
transporter would be bigger, or the elevators are. No, it is very small. It's my New York place, but I love it. I'm in the middle of, normally I'm in the middle of everything. Right now I'm in the middle of nothing because of the pandemic. But So
now, did you move to New York for the play that you were in?
Yeah, I moved. I have an apartment in LA, and I have my own studio in LA in Hollywood. And,
of course. Which
I spent a lot of time here and a lot of time in New York, most of my life. And then I was out in LA for a long time working, and then I landed a job in one of my favorite movies, beloved movie called A Bronx Tale. It was the first film that Robert De Niro directed, and he starred in it. And it's an autobiographical story of Chaz Palminteri. Those of you who don't know it, it's a beautiful movie.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, so they did it on Broadway, and I landed a role of Frankie Coffee Cake, and I worked on it. We did the pre-Broadway show in 2016, and then we opened on Broadway, and we ran almost 2 years. We closed in end of 2018, and on a sad note, I'll reach a shout out to him, dear, wonderful man. Some of you may have seen it in the media. Unfortunately, he got COVID. 41 years old. He struggled for 90 some days, and he passed. He was totally healthy. He ended up a lot of terrible stuff. Like they had to amputate his leg. He was on heart attacks. He was on the vent. One terrible thing after another. He was a fighter, though. He really fought. He got a beautiful wife and a brand new son left. But it was in the media a lot. He was the one guy. So there'll be a beautiful memorial that's being put together for him in September, next Sunday night. So Memorial Day weekend. So, check out that if you all want to. But at any rate, I came here, did that, and been working on some other projects. And
that's a good run. 2 years on Broadway is a good run.
Yeah, and a magnificent group of people, and with De Niro and Chaz and Jerry Zaks and Sergio. An amazing group of people.
So was Chaz the writer or
Chaz? Well, it's actually Chaz's life story. It started out as a one-man play. Then they made this movie out of it. I'm giving you the very truncated version. And but Chaz stuck to his guns. Hollywood wanted to buy it from him. He actually did it for himself. He was part of a writers group out in LA. Every Monday night they would write. He wrote a monologue one time about this incident that happened on his stoop when he was a kid. And he brought it in, and everybody was like really reacted. So he just kept writing every week. And after about a year, he had this one-man show. They had He was an unemployed actor, a poor actor. They had lines around the block. Hollywood came a knocking. They offered him like $250,000, and he said, "Well, do I get to write it and be in it?" And they said no. And then he said, "Then forget about it." So he kept doing it.
It's rocky.
And what happened was and they called him in again. And with this time, all the William Morris agents, all the big financiers, and they offered him, I think it got up to like $1 million. He excused himself, went into the men's room, pulled something out of his wallet that his dad had given to him that said, the worst thing in life is wasted talent. And he used to carry it in his wallet. He put it in his wallet. He went back in and he said, "Do I get to write it? Do I get to be in it?" And they said, "No." He said, "I'm very sorry, no." And the one guy right before he left said, "You'll never get this made." Cut to that was not easy to do. And he was doing the show, and one night he comes off stage, and someone says, Robert De Niro's in your dressing room. He says, Robert De Niro's in your dressing room. So he goes back, and there's Robert De Niro, who's a very kind, very, humble, very kind man. Said, I think you got something here. And long story short, he said, I'd like to direct it and be in it. And Chaz said, do I be in it? And can I? He said, who better to write it and be in it? They shook hands. And it's a historical movie. It's a beautiful movie. And so that's how that started. And then cut to, they made a musical out of it. Alan Menken did the music. And everyone's like, Alan Menken, the Disney guy? And they're like, because it's a gangster movie. It's about it's a Italian mob movie. And he said, my life is a fable. He said, and he writes fables. He said, so he's the perfect guy. So it all happened. So it was a great experience. So.
That is fantastic. Well, of course, and listen, if you know movies, Chaz Palminteri.
Yeah.
That's a great story. But also it's this is the wonderful thing about New York and the New York theater is that it's a very different world than Hollywood.
Oh, totally different universe. And even just on every level, like work is different, and Hollywood, they film your race each leg at a time and then string your race together. In New York, you run the marathon every night, 8 times a week, the whole thing. So it's a very different use of it's a different use of your acting muscles. It's still acting, but it's just a totally different world that you're in. And there's good and bad to both. They're both terrific in their own. But it's like comparing chicken and an orange. They're different.
Well, and it's always amazing because you have in New York, having grown up in New York and grown up going to Broadway and seeing it's an interesting way to grow up because then you see these people in movies, and you're like, oh yeah, I saw that person on Broadway. Listen, though, I think I told you that the first play I ever saw on Broadway was back in the 70s when I was in high school, and I saw it was A Matter of Gravity, and it was Katharine Hepburn and a pre-Superman Christopher Reeve.
Wow.
Yeah. Because I was like, Katharine Hepburn. We got to go see Katharine Hepburn.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fierce.
Yeah. But over the years, I've seen West Side Story. And something that's near and dear to you is I saw, which was probably the most memorable for me is I saw George C. Scott and Charles Durning in Inherit the Wind on Broadway.
Wow. Well,
and I had worked with them. So tell us about that.
My first gig in LA, I went out there to do a pilot for at the time, the brand new USA Network. They were just starting. And I was doing this pilot and I was a hospital administrator. We were shooting at some hospital in Glendale. And anyway, I came out. I'd never been to LA before. And a director friend of mine, a dear mentor friend, Dan Petrie Sr. He directed Sidney Poitier and Raisin in the Sun. Look him up. His whole family, they're an amazing family. He had reached out to me and he said he was doing this shoot of a remake of Inherit the Wind with George C. Scott and Jack Lemmon. And he said he hired me to go and help them learn the script for like 3 weeks before the rest of the cast joined. So I drove up to this place called Santa Clarita. I had never been. I had never seen Cactus live. I felt like I was like driving around on like a cartoon of like the Flintstones. It was fun.
What year is this? What year is this?
Late 90s, I guess.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Late 90s?
Yeah, it would have been the 2000s. 2000s. No,
really?
I wasn't. I had never been to LA before that. No, it was mid 2000s. Okay. I guess sometime in the 2000s. So I was very early 2000s. I was very new. I could look up when the movie was and I'd know. But at any rate, it was me, George C. Scott, and Jack Lemmon, and they spent the first 45 minutes just like kind of putting their arm around me. They knew my mentor, who was Uta Hagen, a very famous acting teacher and stage actors. So they were telling me these war stories about them on Broadway with Uta. And on Broadway, they had each been in the show, but played the different parts. So now they were going to do it, and they switched parts for this film. So I sat there and just read in all the other parts, helped them learn their parts. Then we got up on a sound stage. They taped out the whole set, and I'd run around being the other people. Then they started adding in the other actors. So I was I was there to help them, get the material under their belt, which was just a fascinating experience. It was magnificent. I mean, I was driving back. I remember the first day, and I was like, this is why I don't do drugs. Drugs don't give you this. I mean, for real, it was insane. That was my first gig in LA. It was really
now, and I'm going to pop this up here on the screen here. Here's the IMDb of Inherit.
Oh, there you go. Absolutely.
says 1999 here, but
so there was 99. It was new or like early 2000. Okay, it was 99. That's exactly what it was.
And yeah, Lane Smith was in it also. So
one of the you know what's his name? One of the brothers. Famous family. I stink with names. Look him up. He played he's the sheriff. Read the names. Like he should be up top.
He's got Lane Smith, Tom Everett Scott, Catherine Morris, John Cullum, Brad Greenquist, David Wells, Peter McKenzie, Dennis Cockrum, Stephen Monroe, Jim Meskimen, Royce Applegate, Angie Strickland. Let's see.
His brothers are all famous.
Dirk Blocker. Oh,
who?
Dirk Blocker. Dirk.
No,
Blocker.
but keep going. No. This guy is his what's his name? His father's. They're all famous. Oh my God. Catherine Zeta-Jones is he one of the? I stink with names.
Oh,
who's her husband? What's that family's name? Listen to me. I'm doing a talk show and I can't remember these famous people's names. I stink with names.
Okay, I'm bodyguard police, and I don't. Russ Tamblyn was in it.
No. They're like Hollywood royalty. Go back up. You missed him. Is he like the third? He should be the third or fourth name on it.
What's
they
it?
can't have taken it. Who? No.
Tom
Who's
Everett,
right on?
Catherine Morris, John Cullum, Brad Greenquist, David Wells, Peter McKenzie. Who are we missing?
Dude, what's the family? I'm thinking, who's the family? The guy that plays Trump on Saturday Night Live.
Baldwin, Alec Baldwin.
One of the Baldwin brothers is in this. His name's not on there?
No. Bo Bridges is on.
Bo Bridges, and then we have who? Oh well.
I don't
know why it's not on there.
Well, listen, you have Bo Bridges was in it. Dirk Blocker, the son of Dan Blocker, was Hoss on Bonanza. He was in it. And then Russ Tamblyn, who legendary from West Side Story. It was
an amazing group. It was a very cool project too. And Jack won he won an Emmy for it.
So so the question is, how did you, because you're 20 years younger at this point, how did you get the role to coach George C. Scott and Jack Lemmon?
Well,
was it the Uta Hagen connection?
Dan knew me. He didn't know who I was, and he knew I had actually guest taught a couple of times at the AFI, believe it or not. That I was actually right after that happened. He knew me. He knew I knew Uta, and he knew they had knew Uta. So I guess there was a company, and they're not easy people. I mean, Uta's you had to be tough to survive Uta Hagen, and I was I knew her for over 20 years. I was a very beloved friend and colleague, and I was her protege, and I learned major life lessons besides how to act from her. But so she she doesn't suffer any fools, and she's you have to really have a very high bar of your game. And he knew that I was how beloved I was with her, and so he knew and I'll share a quick story. On the parking lot after the first day, we're going back to our cars, and Dan and I are like going back. His car was right next to mine, and he said, I'm gonna tell you something, Ted. I said, what? He said, wait do you tell your dad you spent the afternoon with General Patton, which is George C. Scott. And we laughed, and he said, I knew you'd be fine. He said, but you really surprised me. He said, you hung with them in a way that I never even imagined, and because they were tough, but it's being on your top game. There, the level of focus and the duration of it, because these are long days, just the three of us in a room together at a table with the scripts, and 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, just learning the script and going over it. And I'll share this real quickly, and help reading and all the other parts, and then when they're working, watching it happened once with Jack and once with George C. Scott, where Jack Lemmon went like this, and I fed him a line. He went, no, he said, no, I'm working. I went, got it. And I could when was he as the character finding what to say, and when was he Jack? And I'm going, okay, so I have to be that in tune with them to hang with each one. It happened one day with him, and it only happened one other time with George. But hey, for all that amount of time and that kind of material, go look at the script someday. That's pretty damn good. But it was a magnificent time, and to see everything you believe in practiced at their level of skill, because that'll never come around again. That's where TV and film actors came from, was theater, and they were theater actors that were migrated over to become big movie stars, and TV stars, but not a movie. And just to watch them do their thing was just it doesn't get any better.
Oh yeah,
and I've been very fortunate. I mean, and then I ended up, I do a lot of other things. I mean, I create my own TV shows, I direct stuff, I coach and teach, but and I'm not name dropping. It was really fun and then to get to work with, like, I worked with George Gandolfini on his last 5 movies, and people may say, like, well, what do you do with George Gandolfini? And I'm like, well, George didn't hire me to teach him how to act. I mean, not George, James. He would get these movie roles and he'd fly me in, and we'd work on the script before he'd go on the work, before shooting, to explore the script, to explore possibilities, to ask. I would just ask tons of questions. So what would happen? The magic phrase, let's see what we get if, and you fill in the blank. And then instead of thinking through, we would do it and see what would happen. You're discovering stuff. You go, oh, okay, that's interesting. Let's say, okay, now let's see what happens if we did the scene, and what if blank? And then we do it, and they went, okay. So we did the one film in particular was called Killing Me Softly with Brad Pitt that they shot in New Orleans. James flew me to New York, and we worked for several days here before he went to New Orleans to shoot it, to learn the script and just to explore it. He got on that plane and went to New Orleans, and I just said, look, you have at least 5. There's one scene. I said, you got 5 different ways to look at this scene. I said, and you can bet that the director's going to have an idea, and Brad Pitt's going to have an idea. So my job was just to explore all kinds of possibilities, which was just fantastic, with him. So.
Well, that was my phone just going off. It's a little shocking, but the news just came across the wire that Chadwick Boseman, known for his role as the Black Panther, just passed away from cancer. He, at the age of 43, he died of
God.
No, oh my God, he's so young. He was so young. And that's wow. That's really, oh God.
That sucks. Oh yeah. Man, was it known that he was ill?
Listen, this is brand new news to me. I didn't know about that. He just did that other movie, 21 Bridges, and the Black Panther was such a breakthrough role for him. What a shame. Anyway, our sympathies out to his family, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell everyone, everyone who doesn't know. I mean, I know because I went through the process starting with Howard and then with you and with Marilyn. Tell us, or tell the audience, since they may not know, tell them about Uta Hagen, and tell everyone a little bit about the different schools of acting. Mike Stanislavski, and so it kind of give us everyone a couple minutes of this is how this is acting in
or what it's based. I'll preface it with this, and whenever I teach or coach anybody, there's no one way to do this. You have to find what works for you. There are certain people that study at studios, and they say, without that study, I never would be able to do this. And there are other people who are just thrown into the water, and they figure out how to swim, and they learn through that by picking it up from other people. I mean, regardless, you got to just figure out some way to identify quality and then adapt it and make it your own. I mean, so whether you do that in a classroom, whatever. But so I preface it all with, there is no one way to do this. And it's very often called the method. And that definition is bastardized a lot and made fun of a lot. But in its essence, it's basically what we know as modern acting. And, Stella.
Oh yeah, I was just watching his interview with Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brando. I mean, that whole ilk of acting came from this school, and all these Uta Hagen, who is an actress and became a teacher, developed her way to do it. Stella Adler, Sandy Meisner, the Actors Studio. I mean, all these different places are offshoots, and they basically all the way I kind of they all have it was a studio training, and then they basically all have their own bus ride to the same destination for the most part. And so you just have to pick, and one doesn't fit everybody, but for me, Uta she had wrote a very famous book called Respect for Acting. I had read it when I was in high school. But then I ended up being in her class in New York just to keep my own chops going after I had gone to a conservatory. But everything she ever did, she continued to practice acting. And it was never from studying it; it was from doing it and solving her own problems. So she had her whole approach, and then you had Stella Adler, who was an actress, and she had her whole approach. Sandy Meisner, a very, very famous teacher, had his own whole technique and approach, and they're just different ways of getting to honest work. That's the truth is, if you know how to, some people just innately tune into certain things. But in order to, the truth of the matter is the demands of the workplace, be it on theater, be it in front of a camera, there's techniques and skills and crafts to it. You know, no one would want to play a violin for the symphony and think they could just do it for a little bit and then go audition. But a lot of people, because so many people relate to acting, when we do our job at its highest level, no one sees the acting.
Right.
So that's you don't see the skill. No one sits there and goes, oh, I could play the violin like that. But when you see someone there and you empathize with and connect with them, you immediately think, oh, I can do that. Like, oh, yeah, with 80 people standing around you on cue. And it's more and her title, Respect for Acting, was actually, the older I get, the more brilliant that is and more relevant today. But there's a shift that's gone on, because back then there was conservatory training, there was repertory theater, and that kind of acting training. It's shifted today. Today, it's not quite as the actors, because of technology, etc., and how fast things go. People aren't as inclined to really study it and have a respect for it. And there's a thing like that used to be like mentorship, or that you would do at a theater, which would be apprentice, and learn from someone who had a higher skills. And you would work at a summer theater, you'd work somewhere, or with a theater company, or even in TV and film. You know, you would apprentice, and that's how you would learn from the people who did it at that high level. And that I still think.
Listen, Ted, I get it, because the whole thing, that the more I took classes, starting with Howard and then with you and Marilyn and with Richard Hatch for years, the more I took it, it was the classic case of the more I was like, holy crap, the more I don't know. And I became a little more skilled, but the more is like, it just going, holy crap. And the thing that I really realized was exactly that. Like, now I know why great actors are great, because they do it all the time. They're constantly working, right? Because me, as having a job and having a company and doing this on the side and being totally left brain, not right brain, it was this huge struggle that I put so much energy in, so much work in, just for this one little itty bitty role. And I knew that I could never be an actor, because I was like, I would have to drop everything and study full time, like 12 hours a day, and then maybe I might be mediocre, right? You know, and this is why I have so much respect for the actors. And now I can see things and go, that's amazing. They're so, you know, and it's not just talent. It's like saying that, oh, Michael Jordan was great because of talent. No, he was also the hardest worker in the gym, right? And that's
Kobe. What about Kobe? Look what he did on his downtime. Any of them, and it's. You also like being on a red carpet is not being an actor. There's different kinds of actors too. There's being a personality, being famous. That's not the same thing as being an actor. And you know, being at an award ceremony is just as much to do with acting as standing and having your picture taken in a Speedo with a medal does on a Wheaties box has nothing to do with swimming.
Right.
But you understand when you're, so being famous has nothing to do with what the work of an actor. It's that daily work and that discipline and asking of the questions and that exploring of things like that, and those skills that are actually become second nature the more you do it, hopefully. And it's seamless. It's invisible when you're doing it at its best. So, and again, you also, especially today, with the internet and YouTube, there's a difference between being, like I'll repeat it, being famous and being a personality is not the same thing as being an actor. I worked for 2 seasons at the Drew Carey Show. I directed the director there, the multi-camera stuff, and learned that. And he is a great guy. He would do the Q&A with the audience before the show, at the taping every night. He'd come out before we start taping, and he'd do a Q&A. And almost every single night, every show, someone would say, "So how long have you been acting?" And he'd say, "What?" He said, "Acting." He said, "I'm a comedian." He goes, I'm not an actor." He goes, "I'm a comedian. I do jokes." And he said that out of respect for acting, and plus, and differentiate. He goes, which I always thought was a cool thing. And of course, what he did as a comic has his own world of skill, But I just always appreciated him doing it. I thought that was very cool.
No, that is very cool. Well, and that's it. It's now I can see the work that goes into things. The thing I keep getting, I talk about is, did you watch Breaking Bad?
I didn't.
Oh,
I know. I watch. Well, my TV viewing, because there's so much of it, and I coach a lot of actors, famous actors and up and coming. I watch an episode of like everything, so that I know the flavor of it. It's almost like music. I know what kind of music that group of musicians plays, what that band plays, so that because there's not just one way to be an actor. You have to. It's like an instrument. You don't just play the piano. How you play the piano in New Orleans is different. Jazz band is different than how you play it up at the New York Philharmonic. Is different than how you play it in Ohio at a polka band. They're all playing the piano, but you have to understand the music you're in to then harmonize it and make music with them. There's not just one way to play it. The same thing with acting. There's not one way. I mean, the truth is the truth, but you also have to understand the world that you're in. Sonda Rhimes show has its own thing, and Sorkin has his own thing.
Oh yeah.
What's his name from Comedy Central that does the South Park? Trey Parker has his thing. I mean, so they have their own tone, their own vocabulary, their own tone, their own music, and that's why having those professional awarenesses to adjust and play with them, that takes skill. It doesn't just happen.
So I have to tell you this. I haven't told you this, but so for me, because I can look back all the way back to 2012 when I started with Howard, and think of the things that I did, and especially in Howard's class, I was so clueless. And the first breakthrough I had was with you in Maryland, and we were doing Buddha's exercises, and it was the one where you recreate a piece of your day, right? And so for me, the piece of my day was, back then, I would wake up in the morning and I would walk into the kitchen and I would make oatmeal and oatmeal and strawberries. And I would do that. And so I remember getting into my workout gear in the studio. So we had it in the studio, and I made my oatmeal, which of course was cold. And, but I remember that was the first time, because I did it and I felt good about it. I felt truth in what I was doing, because I did it every day. And that exercise, when I did that exercise, I was like, this is me. This is what I do every single day. And it was like the first little step where I go, okay, I get it.
There.
I get it.
Well, metaphors are great tools to teach in anything, but I always make a metaphor of like, the script is the menu. You don't eat the menu. When you actually eat a meal, there is no recipe. I mean, the recipe is the menu. I mean, is the script. The actual meal is the substance of the meal, is the chicken, is the vegetable, that's the meal. The recipe just is a tool to get to the meal. The recipe is not meant to be eaten. It's meant to point you to the substance of a meal. A script is not, you don't want to be in a scene. Right. You want to be in your living room. You want to be on the deck of the Enterprise. You want to be in the transporter room. You don't want to be in a scene or in a shot in the captain's deck. You want to be in the deck. I want to be having a cup of coffee, not in a scene about having a cup of coffee. And that focus, it's a matter of, it's like an athlete. There's also great metaphors with athletes. Athletes focus on their skill. And it's always, like an athlete, when you're really a good actor, the focus is not on you, it's on the other person. Tennis players do not sit there and wonder how they're looking with their racket. No. It's everything they do is totally tuned into at laser focus on their opponent. And when you're acting in what's called the zone, your focus is always on other people. It's never on you, and you're never on you performing. It's always on the other person. And that takes a lot to get to that.
Oh, it absolutely does. I know when we did Prelude, it was actually easier for me to do more ad lib stuff than the scripted stuff, because I could feel the
Yeah, but here's the trick, that because it always comes up with improv. And I did improv. I was in an improv group. I get improv, and I spent years articulating what helps you in an improv and a scripted thing and what doesn't. The thing about a script is, I'm going to believe that it's happening for the first time. Even though I, as an actor, have read the whole story, I then know how to forget it all and go back to the beginning and make it inevitable because of how I've constructed my work and where my focus is, so that there's something a little bit new about it. It doesn't mean you're changing anything, and that's the Olympics of an actor, as opposed to understanding the root of it and then it's almost like riffing around it. But yeah, there was something you said that made me want to make a point, but I don't know what it is. But
on the improv.
Oh, I know what it is. Here, this is what it is. Because even working on something, say like a script like Star Trek, and it's almost like, I believe you're going to know better than me, but I grew up in a very big family with 9 brothers and sisters, a lot 10, growing up, 12 people in my house, one bathroom, one TV, and all my older brothers and sisters watched Star Trek. So it was like one of the first shows I ever saw. It was like Star Trek, and then when I got older, I watched all the reruns, so I know all the original ones. But where was I going with that?
Improv and riffing and
which is this. They hired a lot of Shakespearean actors as guest stars and things because of the use of the handling of language, because of all of the just because of the use of language and the extraordinary and the side. You had to have good use of language. So a lot of their guest stars were very accomplished. Or look at Jean-Luc Picard, for example. They were very accomplished classical actors because they could handle language. And it's that same kind of a thing where if you have what I'll call the source of what you're talking about, it's not the page, it's not a script. When you talk about the Klingons or a certain warrior or a certain battle or a certain moment on the bridge, if you make that event real, if you give it substance to yourself, then you can talk about it. But when it stays a line on the piece of paper, that's where acting is torture. But when you sit there and say, if I said, like there was a dog barking a minute ago, right? Was that your dog?
Yeah.
What's the dog's name?
Pee-wee.
And okay? So I'll bet you when you said Pee-wee, you did not see Peewee. You saw the dog.
Yeah, of course.
So you had a source for that wasn't on a piece of paper. So the trap is that people stick to the page and they don't know. Our job is to bring it to life off of that page, where the page then disappears.
Right.
But
you always said that. You always talk about preloading, right?
Most of the whole work is done in preparation, and then you just let it go and see what happens. It's like, and then things. And if you've trained properly, it's like an athlete. Your body will automatically respond, like a football player or a gymnast. If you're worried about a leg press machine or squats in the middle of a play, you are screwed. You're screwed. Your muscles are either there for you or not. And there are certain things with acting that you can train through just practice, etc., that they become almost second nature things to your senses. It's not just words in your mouth. It's your senses as a human being in your body that you start to learn to be in tune with, and you draw upon that. Most of the time, it ends up even being subconscious, which is the best place where it ultimately will come from. Right. But that comes from practice. And like an athlete, your performance is as good as your relationship to your practice. And practice isn't thinking about it. It isn't studying it. It's doing it. I tell people, study sit-ups for a month. Yeah. Study sit-ups. Right. Or do them. Or do sit-ups. Divers don't, you athletes do it. It's in their body. Right. Actors sometimes make a big mistake, and they don't put it in their body when they're practicing, and they're trying to do it. They're trying to learn it so they can do it for real later, rather than engage in it while they're practicing, if that makes any sense.
Right. Yeah, there's a great story.
I don't mean to get too micro, so I don't mean this to be an acting class. Sorry, people.
No, it's great. Well, I think the important thing is that everyone's getting, understands a little about you and your experience, because it's very different from everyone. The other people that have worked on Axanar before. You're really an actor's an acting. You're an actor. You're an actor's coach. The reason we're bringing you in is because we've got some great people that to work with, and having a director who can work at a very high level is only going to make Axanar that much better.
Oh, that's exciting. And plus, I mean, obviously, who doesn't love Star Trek? I grew up with it. I love it. And it's fun. It's like, oh my God, this is fun just to be able to dip my toe into the swimming pool of what that is. It's fantastic. And, and I'll share this. I mean, I'm not name dropping. Like, Whoopi Goldberg is someone that I know, and she, was Diana on the thing, and I mean, that's like, how fun is that? And I haven't seen it, but I don't. Is she? I know she's doing it again. I don't. Has it aired?
Yeah, she's in Star Trek. She was in Star Trek: The Next Generation, from
No, I meant the new one though. The one.
New one. She'll be in the second season of Star Trek Picard.
Yeah, but it hasn't aired yet. That's what I thought. Yeah. So
I'm not even sure they're in production yet.
Exactly. But I remember when they announced them, I was like,
oh yeah. Patrick Stewart was on. I guess he was on The View, the show that got
that worked,
and extended an invitation to her to come to the show. that was a big deal because she is a Star Trek fan. Like, the reason she got onto the show in the first place in the 90s was she was a Star Trek fan. Right? Yeah. I mean, that was 89, 90 when she got on. Hello, Adam Vera. So we want to thank Adam Vera. He's our stalwart contributor here. Thank you for your super chat.
Hey,
here.
Adam. Does anybody have any questions or want to ask anything?
Why don't we open it up to the fans? If you guys have questions for Ted, why don't you ask away? We've got 17 minutes left here, so please ask him, or else I'm just going to talk to Ted about all the things.
I hope I haven't bored the heck out of y'all.
Well, you haven't bored the heck out of me, and I run the show.
All right.
So it's good. So you still have that same little studio there in is that North Hollywood? Is that?
I'm in Hollywood, and I'm at a different place than you were, where I was last time. I'm right. It's called Wilcox Avenue. It's just north of Hollywood Boulevard. I'm up on the second floor. I have my own acting studio and my own office behind it, my own private bathroom. It's my own little space, and a parking lot in LA. It's pretty cool to have. And if at night, when I leave my parking lot of my studio, and if I go right across Hollywood Boulevard, past the Man's Chinese Theater towards West Hollywood, if I get all the lights, I'm in my building in 3 to 5 minutes.
Oh my God.
So I live right near, I have a place right near what's called Runyon Canyon.
Yeah, and sure, I remember that because we went to your party when you were leaving LA.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
I still have the apartment. Thank God they've renovated the whole building, which is really nice. And my studio is still there. And
I miss Runyon. Runyon so much. We used to hike that all the time.
I'm a runner, so I used to run the canyon, and that's where I trained for the New York Marathon. And now here I run the park. I'm in Hell's Kitchen. I run up to the park and I run the reservoir and back down. That's what I've been doing, besides sitting on my Loveless seat in my apartment here in my studio.
Here's a question from Logic's Finest. Ted, what style of actor is easy or difficult to work with?
Okay, let me see them, Mr. Logic. The difficult ones are the ones that aren't open to exploring something or that try to control. The most easy ones are the ones that just go with it. The goal in really good acting is that you set it up so you're allowing things to happen as opposed to controlling them. And it's the a very controlling personality, which we all have in our life because we're all trying to get through this crazy world we're in and to have some kind of control over some element of our lives. It's instinct, but it's death as an actor. You do a lot of specific work, but then you have to let it go. And then it's almost like I'll make an analogy to you. What kind of an actor who's stiff and like a sail. If you had a sailing boat and the sail didn't give, that would not be a good sail. But when you have a sail that goes with the wind, because you may have the same boat going from point A to point B every day, but if you don't know, if that boat is not open to the wind of that particular moment, it's not going to travel. So I hope this metaphor is making a little bit of sense. So the actors that tend to be more controlling, and that tend to, and this is like in life too as a teacher, that try to prove what they can do as opposed to open to discovering something new. Those are the fun ones to work with, because that's where you discover things together as a group of people. That's the collaboration. It's not King telling subjects what to do. That's not, those aren't good directors. It's eliciting creativity from everybody, not just the actors, everybody on your set, to combine everybody's strengths and talents. That even as an actor, going into a project, if the project ends up the way you're thinking it's going to from day one, you've probably missed out on some really great stuff. Because you go in with a plan, but then what you end up with, and I would teach this when I taught, I'm adjunct faculty at USC Graduate Film School, teaching with directors and producers and writers. And one of the things we'd always say is the movie that's in your mind right now, hopefully will never be the movie that ends up on the screen. Because if it is, you probably missed out on a lot of stuff, which means you have to have a plan, but then you have to be open to things evolving and changing. It's the same way with your role as an actor. You have a plan, a very specific, disciplined plan, but then you have to be open, and you have to be open to other things coming at you. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I that definitely gives me something. And here's a good follow-up. Jim Westbrook says, Ted, can you give us an example of the easy and or difficult actors you have worked with?
Yeah, I shot a pilot of mine for Fox, and I had auditions in my own studio, and there was an actress that came in, and there's a million reasons why you don't get roles. Just always do good work. And I had to cast a mother of the actress I had already cast in this one role, so I had needed her mother for this one thing, and for a couple of things. And this actress, she was perfect. It was like they had DNA. It looked like they had DNA, which is always good. And I remind you, the first sense that is engaged in anything with the camera is physical. It's a very important element. So, however, I think the heart of the character is most important, but physical is very important with the camera. So this actress came in, and I gave her a couple of notes. She did it, and I went, "Oh my God, we found her! She was magnificent." And we showed up on the set to film it. It was like a week later. She had practiced, and she thought she made her performance better. It couldn't have been worse. I had to figure out how to shoot around her because she got locked into this way that she figured out was the way to do it, and she was just not open to, and she had learned it a certain way that she could not, no matter what she could not. She wanted to, but she could not get out of that programming she gave herself. That's not a good actor to work with, as opposed to somebody else who actually, it's a great situation, who played her daughter, who I don't want to say her name because then you'll be able to, you'll never know who this other actress is, but I just don't like to goof on it. But she's a well-known actress. She's been in a lot of TV shows, and she does everything from comedies to dramas. She's funny as hell. We have the best time in the world working together. But even when she gets shows, we get together. Then like it'll be shooting all day. She'd come over to my studio, and we'd go through the script for the next day and just go through all the scenes and just go, well, try this. And then if they let you do the scene this way, they make you do it this way. See what happens if they'll let you try it this way. Or what about ask the props department if you can have this. We would come up with all these things to try things. Most of it was just different ways to go about the script. We would roll on the floor laughing. Then she'd show up on the set already with like 3 possibilities and open to other ways. So someone who's open like that, she gets the core of it, but is not locked. It's almost like a tennis player. You can't go into a tennis match with your moves planned. If you do, you lose. You have to go. There's no way to plan it in advance, like a sport. You have to be alive on the court and just play the game that's happening in the moment. And it's the same way with on a set, believe it or not, is to be alive in the moment without trying to control everything. I hope that answered your question of a kind of an actor, like someone who's, it's kind of what I said to the other thing, but I gave an example of someone who just plans it and is set, and or you give them a note and then they try to plan how it's going to happen. The one thing you never have to plan is how. It'll take care of itself. Like if I want to choke, I know I want to choke someone because they piss me off, right? How do I know how I'm going to choke? I don't plan to choke. How I choke you is going to be different than how I choke your dog. But what stays the same is I know I want to choke someone because they piss me off. So I know that I'm going to show up and I'm going to want to fucking choke whoever they can't stick in front of me. And they may fire that person and hire somebody else. Guess what? I have to now choke this new person I can't choke them the way I choked. It was the same thing with a kiss. If you plan a kiss, you're a freak. You know you want to kiss. You know you're probably going to use your lips, but you don't plan the exact how. That takes care of itself. I hope this is making some kind of sense out there.
Oh, I think you're doing great. Okay, we've got a couple questions. Rose Kirby from Great Britain asked, what Star Trek series film did you love and why? You're basically a TOS guy. You're basically the original series, right?
But I got to tell you, for me though, the very first one that came out, I got a thrill sitting in a huge movie theater watching that come. And I got to get the one where they played them younger. I don't know what the name of it is. Where they're younger. Kirk and Spock. They're younger. They're the young guys. It's not them. That's the movie where it's Kirk and Spock, but they're younger. It's not them at the age they were in the series. They were younger.
Oh, you mean the new movies?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The J.J. Abrams movies. Yeah.
Yeah, like that one. I actually thought that was well done. I got a kick out of how they did that. Being, I appreciated it, and how the essences of things that showed up. The nod to what it was. I like that. But the very first time just seeing it on that big screen with the sound and the visuals, I just thought that was very
lucky. I got to go to the red carpet. My friend.
Oh, wow.
Which was the only red carpet I've ever been to in Hollywood. But but it was on his partner is a famous movie director, and so he got tickets and they didn't want to go, so he gave it to me and
that had to have been a blast. Look at me, my hair going on.
That
would have been a blast.
It was so much fun. It was so much fun because I'm a huge Star Trek geek. So to get to go and see that and to see, like you said, to see it on the big
that scale, it's like I love it.
Was of course it was at the Mann's Chinese Theater, or Grauman's Chinese Theater, right?
Grauman, sure.
So it was just and they've redone that. That theater is magnificent, and everyone was there, and the head of Paramount and JJ and everyone. So that was a real.
What's the one when Spock died?
That was Star Trek 2.
Okay, I mean, I'm just saying, there's things about all of them. There's some of them I'd be like, part of them, but the other part, I go, there was always something cool about each one of them that I liked.
We were talking about that the other. Even the bad Star Trek movies have something in them that.
There's always There's always at least some element that you go, okay, that not so much. That's cool. Plus, my guess is, being a Trekkie fan, you're going to you're going to experience it differently than a lot of other people anyway. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's see what else everyone else said. Jim Westbrook says there will be no choking of my dog.
No. Never.
Hey, do you have a favorite captain from Star Trek? Is it Kirk, or is there anyone else that you latched onto?
I tell you, I grew to appreciate Kirk. What's his Shatner? At first, as a kid, I just I thought it was just like a joke, and I just couldn't believe how bad it was. But the older I got, the more I appreciated what he did and who he became, like how they became. What I also love, and I actually mention this in classes at times when I talk about evolutions, because nowadays, if you have a new TV show or project and it does not hit coming out of the gate, you're out. Whereas back then, like watching the first Star Trek, and how they were a little more, the essence of who they were was there. Like who Spock was there, but he was very robotic in the first couple episodes. Like the core of their relationships are all there with the doctor and like all of Sulu, all with what's his name in the control room, Captain, I kind of go Scotty, all of them. But the essence of who they were there, but they weren't refined, and they found it. The writers found it, the actors found it, the directors found it. That all of the technical elements, they kind of find it. If you look back at on what's the one with X-Files. Watch the first season of X-Files, the first couple episodes, and then watch it a year to the end of the second year. It took them a while to find Mulder, it takes the writers, the actors, all those things. They unfortunately today, projects aren't given the chance to do that. You have to hit coming out of the gate, and if you're not spot on, you're screwed. And we're back then, or Megan Mullally, or what was it? Where she, where she talks like this. What show is it? Will and Grace.
Will and Grace.
At the beginning of that, she had it evolved. the essence of who they were. You understand why they got hired, and you saw that get drawn out, that those qualities in them get drawn out. And I know it. I remember the first time I ever experienced that consciously was Star Trek, from the beginning to then who Spock became and what they evolved into and if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I hope I answered your question.
Oh, I think you did. Here's another question, which you kind of touched on, but Darren asks, how do you draw the innate, I think he's saying innate talent individual actor for a scene?
I work with a lot of different kinds of people. I work with athletes, I work with dancers, I work with musicians, I work with actors, some people who've never done it. And to me, it's defined. No one teaches anybody talent. You have it. You're a human being. You're either, and certain people have different degrees of it, but you teach people, you help guide people what to do with it and how to focus it and how to let them trust it to see what might come that they may not even have faith in. And it's almost like being a coach to get someone to jump out of a plane, to let them know you're going to be okay, and they have it within them to do it. I would never do that, by the way, but at any rate, and it's to make someone feel safe and for them to understand, have a connection to something, and to give someone a focus other than themselves. It's almost like, and to make them feel comfortable. And like, for example, like when I coached an actress, I can say who it is. Her name is Maya. She's a singer. She won a Grammy for that Moulin Rouge movie. And she had a really big starring, the big guest star spot on NCIS. And they weren't sure that they ended up, in a long story short, they went through everybody in LA. They found me, she met me, she loved me. They had me not only work with her before, I was on the set. I talked to her because I knew she was a dancer. So I knew she understood things in dancing terms. And so I would give, like the director, we'd watch the shot and he'd go, I need this, I need this. And I'd go, and I'd grab her and I'd have her do it. And I mean, I could give an example, but I think it'd be too boring, but it was really funny. I'm going to do this. If I go on too long, tell me to shut up. They wanted her character, like all those shows. She was her sister. She was a stripper. She played a stripper, a pole dancer, and her sister was murdered. And of course, in the last part of the show, it turns out, as of course I knew it would. They didn't tell us, but I knew it. She killed her sister. But you don't know that. She's a victim the whole time until the end. Someone says something, and then she turns. Well, we were shooting that turning scene, and the director said, no, I wanted to have her just like turn on a dime. So I grabbed her to the side and I said, Maya, I said, like ballet, you're in a tutu and you're in a point. And I was very physical with her. And I said, do the first part of this speech, like when you're talking about this, be on point, to be that ballerina with your hair up in a bun. I said, and as soon as you get to this part, I went, get down and dirty. I said, and start using your hips, because ballerinas don't use their hips. And I get that down to earth and like this. And first of all, she laughed so hard because she immediately got what I meant. She immediately got it. They had to redo her makeup because she was crying so hard. We did the scene. The entire crew turned to me and went, what did you tell her? And I said, did you get what you wanted? They said, yeah. I said, we'll talk about it later. Let's go. That was just like our private stuff. So I guess my point is, depending on who the individuality of that actor, I try to find something, a metaphor, a way for them. I try to find their way into it, if that makes sense. Because it's not the same way for her into that would not have been the same way I would have told someone else.
Of course.
And I personally, I love working with people who have a skill other than acting to help them do, because they have a sense of themselves in that other skill, like an athlete or a singer. They have a sense of themselves that you can't teach anybody, but they have this, I can help guide someone towards that. But you ultimately in life, we have to find, like Whoopi has a sense of herself. Gandolfini has a sense of himself. Anybody who has, like, De Niro, but they show up, they know they're grounded. And to help, to identify what that is, and then help them, with athletes. I had an NFL Heisman Trophy football player act who would start on Broadway in Chicago, or a tennis player, world-class tennis player, to use metaphors of the tennis game in terms of focus and everything. That's their way in. I hope that helps answer.
No, yeah, absolutely. No, that is absolutely a great answer.
But every person's different, and it is not one size does not fit all. And it's that ability to almost be like a UN interpreter. I have to try to understand what language she speaks to you and you speak, to then help you find your way into what that is. And that being right doesn't make you a good director. It doesn't make you a good teacher. it's your ability to help someone else find it is what makes you, I think, good. So
Great. Let's see. Okay. Well, listen, that wraps it up. We're at our time. Ted, thanks for joining us once again.
absolutely,
I'm so excited to have you on this project.
me too.
This is amazing for Axanar.
I'm excited.
For us, it's going to be great for the actors that we work with here in Atlanta, and then in
Los Angeles,
and then in LA. This weekend we're doing a test shoot. Jeff Fagan is here. Our DP is here in Atlanta. We had a quick test shoot today where he's comparing the Blackmagic camera to his Red Komodo camera, and we are going to be shooting tomorrow. We're shooting a little piece with Garth on the bridge.
That's exciting.
And I'm totally exciting. And then we will be doing our big test shoot here in Atlanta, probably the end of October. I'm looking forward to having you down. That is going to be great. We're going to have a great time.
Hold on.
Oh. And then so we were just planning it.
I'm ready.
Bring them on. We got. As a matter of fact, we hit the local taqueria that we love here today after today's shoot, and tomorrow after the shoot we always go to Dominic's, the Italian restaurant down. We have a pretty good Italian restaurant. Wow. I mean, it ain't New York quality, but it's pretty damn good. It's pretty damn good. I think you'll like it. So
I cook most of my meals, but I have since March 7th I haven't been to a restaurant since February.
Oh my gosh. Well, we will get you out and get you. We have a pizzeria here, Cosmos. That is legitimate New York pizza. Like, wow. Like I've never said, I found one place in LA that was Pepe's. I think it was called Pepe's. It was right opposite Universal Studios.
LA's. I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah. But LA's
right where is that Lancashire that intersects?
Cahuenga, Lancashire. Is it the Cahuenga or Lancashire? Yeah.
Cahuenga and Lancashire, right there, on the left by the donut shop. There's Pepe's. Yep. That is great pizza, and we have a place here that is legitimate New York pizza. So,
very cool. So Atlanta has great food. Are you kidding me?
Oh yeah. No, we got
amazing. You got amazing food. Oh my God. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in Atlanta. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great.
All right.
Well, this has been a thrill. I really thank you. It's been nice, and I look forward to what's ahead. And congratulations, and congratulations on your auction.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And listen, thank you, everyone. Axa family, thank you for coming out for tonight. We will be back tomorrow night with Starfleet Tactical at 10 o'clock. And until then, as always, can we do this? Can you do this yet, Ted? Do you have? There you go.
But you gotta have the thumb out.
There you
go. I'm ambidextrous, so I can do it in both. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, everyone. See you
Be
tomorrow.
safe, everyone. Be well. Bye-bye. Ciao. Bye-bye.